Hi, I'm Tom Hoffman with One-to-One Media, and I'm here at the Standard Highline Hotel in New York with Jason Rose, Senior Vice President of Marketing at Gigya. And tonight we'll be talking about different trends that we're seeing with respect to customer identity management. Jason, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Really appreciate it.
So, Jason, what are you seeing with respect to customer identity management? What are your clients and prospects sharing with you?
Sure. So we're seeing a couple of really big trends in the industry right now. First is, marketers are always challenged with meeting the exchange of, I'm going to register and give you personal information. I want something in exchange. I want that personalized experience that's tailored to my needs and wants. And then the second piece of that, as an organization storing that data, I really need to make sure that I'm complying with all the local regulations and standards that are coming into place around the world, such as the European Union General Data Protection Regulation that's coming in over the next couple of years,
right.
Privacy Shield, data domicile laws for the Russian Federation. So there's a whole host of issues that come with housing that information, treating it appropriately, and reducing your compliance and regulatory risk around that data as well.
There's been a lot of discussion recently about the European regulations. And with regards to that, whether you're talking about clients that are in financial services or healthcare, what are some of the general things that you're hearing from people with regards to that?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is it's a big question, right? So it's been announced, it's been approved, it's being phased in between now and 2018. So there's a little bit of breathing room, but for any major organization, you're kind of like, what does this mean? How is it going to impact my business? And we're seeing a number of key components, such as being able to expose profile data to your user so that they can verify, validate, and see what you're actually storing on them as being a key component. So transparency. Preparing for that, being prepared for the necessary disclosures around how long are you storing that information for inactive users. So making sure you have the right policies as well as systems in place to really meet the transparency and filing requirements for these regulations.
Okay, thanks. So just to switch gears for a moment, now that we're seeing customers using all sorts of digital channels, what are some of the challenges that clients are sharing with you with regards to being able to properly identify customers as they come in either online, via chat, whatever the channel may be?
Yeah, I think Omnichannel is kind of the word of the quarter or the year for 2016 for sure. And what we're seeing is a lot of companies start with the device. So there's a perception that when a normal person thinks of identity, they think of Tom or Jason. When a marketer thinks of identity, oftentimes it's the device. Oh, I've got an iPhone, I've got a tablet, I've got a PC, and then you're trying to figure out who does that belong to. Whereas with customer identity, you can actually start the other way around. By getting Tom or Jason to identify themselves, we can then say, okay, we know this is Jason coming in via his PC, and when I come in and I re-log in via my iPhone or my tablet, we can associate those IDs back to Jason as a person instead of trying to play the guessing game, whose device is this, and how do we make sure we have the right experience across all of our interaction points.
So for clients that you're helping in this regard, can you cite an example of how Gigya's been able to help them out? What are some of the benefits they're deriving?
Sure. Well, one of the key things that we do is we not only make the registration process more frictionless for organizations. So we see big spikes in registration rates. So by implementing things like social login, one-time authentication, which is where you can receive a text message to your phone instead of creating a username and password, and being able to make the registration process when you do have to create a username and password seamless across both PCs as well as cell phones is the first real big benefit. And we see companies receive up to a 50% bump in terms of registration rates on their site by doing this correctly. So that's one, you get more registered and identified users. Two, if they use social login or use something called progressive profiling, where you ask for more information throughout the customer lifecycle, we actually can get more data about that customer that can then be used for segmentation, personalization, and offering a better customer experience. And then finally, the key thing that we're seeing is we then integrate this data into all of your CRM, marketing automation, marketing cloud applications, even into CMS systems for personalization on websites. So not only do you collect more, you get more users, you collect more information, but then you use that data more effectively across your entire marketing ecosystem.
Okay, thanks. If we can, let's talk about financial services for a minute. We hear a lot about how customers are increasingly indicating their preference to use mobile banking applications and other digital channels to interact with banks and also to conduct transactions as well. How does that factor in terms of customer identity management, as well as making sure that a bank or other financial services organization is adhering to Dodd-Frank and other regulations?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. There's a balance between an appropriate level of security, right? Because obviously there is probably not many more secure transactions that you'll do than with your financial institution. So you want to make sure you've got the right security protocols. So they definitely things like two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, making sure sessions time out appropriately. Banks are always on the leading edge of those things. But at the same time, they're realizing that more and more they live in a digital world. So there are certain things like checking a balance or other kind of low risk activities that they need a lower level of authentication for. So providing that progressive level of authentication as you go through the risk profile of what type of transaction I'm doing with a bank. And then on the reporting side, making sure that for things like SOX compliance and Dodd-Frank, making sure that you have the transparency of how you're handling that customer information, that you have the right demographic information for making sure that you have the fairness in lending standards and all those other things in place. So it's the dual factor of security balanced with the right reporting from the data structure that you've created for all this customer data.
Well, this has been great, Jason. Thanks so much for sharing your insights today.
Tom, my pleasure. It was great speaking with you.
Thanks.